following is from the Agency for Instructional Technology, AIT.
If you look around your room, imagine how objects resemble simple geometric shapes. An orange is a sphere, a funnel is a cone, a cup is a cylinder. In this program, Paul will show you how to draw these three basic shapes, a cone, cylinder, and sphere, how to shade them to create the illusion of volume, and how to find these shapes disguised in nature.
The cylinder is circular, has a circular base, so if we draw it in perspective, it comes out as an oval. So usually we begin by sketching a loose oval. Don't worry about the little lines that go over it. Just very loosely, we get an idea. Now, if the cylinder's sides are down here, then our eye level's up here so we see the top of it. The cylinder sides are straight. And the sides then, of course, are parallel. But usually I'll draw a light line first, and when I feel I have the line, I can come down and darken it. Now the base of the cylinder, if I'm looking down on it, will become a curved line. And it will be more curved than this top line. And the reason is, the closer we get to the eye level, the narrower that oval becomes. So as we draw down lines, contour lines, from the eye level down, they will have more of an arc to them, more of a shape, as we have here. Just depending on how high your eye level becomes. Now the cylinder, of course, appears in various proportions. If I take a proportion like this, be narrow as a pipe, or it could become a pencil. Small base, long sides, and we could put a cone on top of it where you sharpen your pencil, and another cone for the graphite. They're both cylinders, different proportions. Also, it can appear in a very flat proportion. And here you would see it as you would see a coin, a 50-cent piece or quarter, and here'd be the ridges. And remember, no matter how flat it is, you can't see the top and the bottom at the same time. Either you're looking at the top or the bottom. And the reason I say this is many students draw milk bottles or containers and erroneously will draw where you see the top and the bottom. That can't be, regardless of how flat your cylinder is. There are times that your cylinder may be seen incomplete. And when this is true, we usually draw it complete first. And then we cut out the parts. Here, let's say this is a birthday cake, and we put it on a platter here. And I'll sketch it loosely. Now, if I want to cut a piece out of it where somebody else has, I simply cut in there, and this would appear shade a part of it in there. And if I had candles here, they're cylinders. Now let's go back to this first cylinder and talk about shading it. This is form shadow, not cast shadow. When we put our form shadow here, let's use the 1/3 system. And the 1/3 system goes this way. First, we determine our light source. I'm going to arbitrarily determine it here, high and from the right. Now, the idea of the 1/3 system is that 1/3 from the edge of your light side will be your highlight in the shape of the object. 2/3 from the light side, or 1/3 from the dark side, will be your darkest part of your shading. So, in doing that, let me start here and start adding some shade here. Tone, and gradually I'll work over here toward the highlight. The highlight, 1/3 the closest to the light, and then it graduates each way. So the edges are not the lightest and the darkest. 1/3 in is the lightest, and 2/3 over is the darkest. Now I can add the dark and show it graduating. And that's the way I suggest you shade this geometric object with artificial light. Next, let's move to the cone. Now, the cone and the cylinder are related in shape, in that their bases are circular. But of course, the difference, as you know, in the cone is the side slant to a point. In drawing the cone, I start out the same way I do as drawing a cylinder. I make an oval, and sometimes I'll make cross lines to give me help lines. And here, very lightly and loosely, I'll start the base of the cone. I keep it light till I'm sure of my sides and how I'm on a line. Then I will find by the eye what I think to be center, say perspective center there. And from there, I like to make a perpendicular line to the oval, up here, very lightly, as far as I want to go. Then I'll come up and stop at the point of the cone. Now you see with that point and the two sides, or the two edges of your oval, you can simply draw a line down and take out the guesswork from that point to that edge, and then of course from this point over to this edge. And now I'll darken the bottom line, and I forget about the lines in between. Now if I'm looking up an eye level from the bottom, then I'll darken this line also. If I were looking down from the top, I would have erased that line. Now, let's go back to thinking about shading and shadow. You shade this the same way you would your cylinder. The only difference is the shape of the highlight and the shape of the darkest part follow the shape of the cone. So again, if we have our light coming from high to the right, the darkest part will be 2/3 away from that light, and the lightest part will be 1/3 to the light edge. So starting out gradually, I tone this, and when I come into the dark area, the 1/3 of the way from the dark edge, I darken it, but I darken it in the shape of a cone. In other words, that shadow gets narrower as it goes up here, and the same way with the highlight. The highlight comes to a point up at the top of the cone. So I'll add a little more. And the thing to remember then is that it graduates from the dark to the gray, the dark to the gray to the highlight, and then it starts back again to a gray. Since the light is high and the base is away from the light, then of course the base is going to be in shadow too, and it'll be dark. With no gradation at all. Simply dark shadow. Let's look at the sphere. I want to give you some tips on drawing it and shading it. Now, the sphere or the ball is a circular object, and in sketching it freehand, I put my fingernails to the paper and I start in a circular motion. And you notice my fingers and elbow hardly move. All the motion is done from the shoulder. When I feel I'm in good motion, I simply put my pencil or crayon to the paper and we get a loose oval line. Doing that again up here, I'm in motion first, and then you can sketch a reasonably nice sphere freehand. And another one over here. Of course, the sphere will appear incomplete many times. You'll see it incomplete this way as a case of an umbrella, or it can be as the case of a balloon. Many times in fruit or in this shape, when they're cut such as an orange or a grapefruit, you'll start out by drawing the sphere, but you'll end up slicing it with an oval and then, of course, putting in the detail. Now, as far as shading, if we still use the 1/3 method, and let's assume a light's coming from here, it's somewhat like the cone and cylinder, but a little bit different. 1/3 of the way in, on the light side, you're going to have a circular highlight. 2/3 of the way from the light side, you're going to have your dark, but it's going to be in a crescent shape, following the sides of the ball or the sphere. So if I shadow these in here, around here, I'll leave this 1/3 spot up here for my highlight. And this crescent shape down here will be my darkest part. And then it will graduate toward the highlight, and the other way it's going to graduate toward the far edge or the dark side. So when you're finished shading it, it takes a while, it takes time on this one because it's in this, especially this crescent shape. 1/3 of the way in, you have a white highlight. 2/3 of the way over, the crescent-shaped dark.
If you look around your classroom or home, you will find objects with the basic shapes of a cylinder, cone, and sphere. Practice drawing these objects and shading them using the 1/3 rule. With this understanding of how to draw 3 basic geometric shapes, the cylinder, cone, and sphere, and how to shade them for indoor lighting, you now have the knowledge to draw many things. Drawing with Paul Ringler is produced by the Agency for Instructional Technology in association with the Oklahoma Educational Television Authority.